All right, let's just jump right in. If you're an Amazon seller, you already know some brands are basically like fortresses. Super tough to get into, but man, once you're inside, it's so worth it. And today, we're talking about one of the giants, Lego. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what it means to get ungated, so you can start selling one of the most popular toy brands, well, on the entire planet. So what's the big deal, right? Why go through all this trouble? Is it really worth the headache to get past Amazon's restrictions? That's the key question, isn't it? Because this isn't just about selling a popular toy. It's about getting your foot in the door of a really unique, and let me tell you, highly profitable market.
And here's why it's such a big deal. The demand for retired Lego sets, it just skyrockets. I mean, you can sell them for way more than what they originally cost. Now, you combine that with a crazy sales volume during the Q4 holiday rush and events like Prime Day, and suddenly you're not just selling toys anymore. Nope, you're tapping into a massive collector's market right when everyone is buying. It's a total gold rush.
So to make sense of all this, we've broken it down into 5 sections. First up, we're going to look at why Amazon even has this fortress to begin with. Then, we'll walk through the usual DIY paths to get approved. We'll also talk about a huge new roadblock that's popping up for sellers, and we'll even show you a shortcut to get around it. And then we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways you absolutely need to remember.
Okay, let's start with Section 1, Amazon's gated fortress. See, to figure out how to get in, you first have to understand why the walls are there at all. I mean, why is a brand as massive and well-known as Lego so heavily restricted?
Well, the official term for this is gating, and you can think of it as Amazon's quality control system. They put up these gates for certain brands and categories, and it means sellers have to get special permission before they can list anything. It's not just to make your life harder, I promise. It's actually a key part of their whole strategy to make sure everything sold on their site is the real deal, authentic and high quality.
And Amazon's motivation here is really twofold. On one hand, they're protecting you, the customer, right? Making sure you get genuine products and have a good, safe experience. But on the other hand, they're also protecting the brand itself, Lego in this case. They're trying to prevent counterfeit junk and shady sellers from damaging Lego's reputation. So for Amazon, it's a total win-win.
All right, so now that we know why it's gated, how do you actually get approved? Let's talk about the path you can take on your own, the manual DIY process. This is the standard route Amazon gives to every seller. At first glance, it seems pretty straightforward, right? You need a professional seller account in good standing, you've got to source your stuff from an authorized distributor, then you just find a Lego product in Seller Central, click Apply to Sell, and submit your documents. Simple. But, as any seasoned seller will tell you, every single one of these steps has potential landmines, especially that last one about documentation. And this is where things get tricky. Amazon goes over your invoice with a fine-tooth comb. Seriously, the 2 biggest things that'll get you rejected instantly: first, the source. It has to be from an authorized distributor, not just some retail store. And second, all your info, your business name, your address, it has to match your seller account perfectly. Even a tiny typo can get you denied. Oh, and you also have to show you bought at least 10 units of the same Lego product.
And I really can't stress this next point enough. This is the #1 mistake people make. That receipt you got from Walmart or Target, it's completely useless for this. Amazon will reject it flat out, no questions asked. The same goes for order confirmations or those pro forma invoices. What you need is a final, official, paid-in-full wholesale invoice. End of story.
So where can you even find these approved distributors? Well, the seller community has a few favorites. You'll hear names like EE Distribution and Entertainment Earth a lot. They're big in the collectibles world, and they know how to create invoices that Amazon likes. Alliance Entertainment is another big one. The main thing is you have to work with distributors who already get what Amazon is looking for.
But here's the kicker. Just when you think you figured it all out, Amazon changes the game. And that brings us to what we're calling the 2025 roadblock. Because what worked even just a little while ago, well, it might not work anymore. Getting ungated has gotten a lot harder.
And this quote from a seller just says it all. You can feel the frustration, can't you? They're saying that even with the right invoices, people are just hitting a brick wall. Amazon is now telling them they need a letter of authorization straight from Lego. And as this seller points out, you're just not going to get that. This letter of authorization, or LOA for short, is the new big hurdle. So why the sudden change? Well, it's probably Amazon trying to tighten its grip, you know? They want to favor sellers who have direct relationships with big brands, and maybe push out some of the smaller third-party folks.
And this LOA effectively slams the door shut for a lot of people, because a brand like Lego is only going to give those out to their absolute biggest partners. Okay, so what do you do when you get that dreaded rejection email? First thing, don't panic. Getting rejected is super common, especially on the first try. The most important thing is to read exactly what Amazon said, find out why you were rejected. And listen to this, do not open a new case. Just reply to the one you already have open. Go back, double-check that your invoice meets every single requirement, fix whatever's wrong, and send it in again. Honestly, persistence is the name of the game here.
So, with this whole DIY path getting so much harder and more unpredictable, a lot of sellers are asking themselves, is this even worth it? And that's where a totally different strategy comes in. Instead of trying to jump this massive hurdle yourself, you can let an expert manage the process for you. Let's talk about the shortcut. See, the alternative to struggling on your own is to use a professional ungating service. These are companies that do nothing but navigate Amazon's crazy, complicated approval systems. They've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times. They know exactly what Amazon wants to see, especially now with all these new roadblocks. So what's the first big benefit? They solve your sourcing problem. They already have the relationships with authorized distributors. That means they can get you the exact kind of invoice that meets all of Amazon's super strict rules. It just takes the biggest, most frustrating part of the whole process right off your plate. And it's not just about the invoice either. These services are basically your guide through the whole maze. They'll walk you through every single step of submitting your application. They make sure everything is filled out perfectly so you can avoid all the common mistakes and get around those new roadblocks like that pesky LOA requirement.
So what's the end result of all that? You get an approval process that's fast, simple, and, this is the most important part, 100% compliant with Amazon's rules. It takes what is normally a super frustrating, time-sucking nightmare and turns it into a smooth, predictable path to start selling.
Phew, okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. We went from the why of gating all the way to the how of getting approved. So now let's just boil it all down to the absolute most important things you need to remember. Think of this as your blueprint. So let's recap the big stuff. First, selling Lego is incredibly profitable, but it's restricted for a good reason, to protect everyone. Second, the golden ticket to get in is a perfect wholesale invoice for at least 10 units. And remember, retail receipts are totally worthless. Third, know that the rules are tougher now. Amazon might hit you with that letter of authorization requirement. And finally, if all of that just sounds like a giant headache, remember, there are professional services that can handle the entire thing for you. Which of course brings us to the final question. We've laid out the entire map for you, we've pointed out the obstacles, and we've even shown you the shortcuts. The potential for profit here is undeniable. So the only real question left is your Amazon business ready to make the move and unlock one of the most profitable categories out there?